I've got new influences in my life, and there's new things that become possible. And I'm watching somebody else do it, and it makes it more real for me. And then they evolve, and the wording changes, and the numbers get bigger, and the time frames get shorter.
That's kind of cool, because like the unexpected challenges or changes, but those could also be positive, the unexpected changes, having new influences in your life and stuff like that.
Welcome back to another episode of Just Real Quick. In the studio today with me, the queen of JKR windows, my beautiful wife, Shandell Rogers, and the crowd goes wild.
Thanks for having me again.
Thank you guys for checking in. Today we're going to be discussing something that's near and dear to my heart. It's helped me accomplish a lot of incredible things in my life. The power of goal setting.
It's powerful.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So there are a lot of different opinions on goal setting, big goals or small goals. Do you set a lot of goals or do you set just a few goals? For me, I'm one of those guys that was influenced early on by Grant Cardone, which talks about doing a lot of goals and making them 10 times as big as you would normally do them. So then if you come up halfway short on a goal that you have put a game plan on and you've executed on, and you've kind of got a general idea of how much activity and action is going to be necessary to hit that great big ass goal, even if you come up halfway short on a goal that's that big, you're still going to do 4 or 5 times as much as you would have done if you were just in a standard mindset making normal, ordinary goals. So what's your take on that?
True. Well, I feel like we have taken a lot of different aspects and ideas from different people, and that's not the only way to do it. That is a great way, but there's I feel like we've kind of taken a lot of different things from different people and made it our own and what works for us. So I think it's good to have like the little daily goals you can check off, but also your big, huge goals that you're working towards. Yeah.
And I think there's a strong mix of the two. That the big goals kind of trickle down to, like, here's this big, hairy, audacious goal that I want to accomplish in the next 5 years. But then what are you going to have to do this year, this month, and starting today to put you on the path to reach that goal that you want to accomplish in the next 5 years?
You got to reverse engineer it.
So yeah, I can't remember where I first heard that from, but it was like this epiphany moment. That, wow, I can break this down to like exactly what I'm going to need to do today. And
by the hour.
It doesn't have to be exactly, but I'm one of those guys that if I can get close, I'm okay. I don't have to know exactly what it's going to look like, and I don't expect it to play out exactly how I had planned it. And I think it was probably from Grant Cardone as well, because I still remember the first couple of pages of the first goals I ever wrote down. I go back and look at it sometimes just because it was so funny to read the things that I was doing at that time.
Yeah.
And I was reverse engineering. And I even had it broke down like mathematically about the amount of income that I wanted to make in that year and how many sales I was going to have to do on a weekly basis to get to that income.
And when you first started writing them, were you writing them as if they've already happened?
No, they started out as just like a bullet point list.
Yeah. So that's one thing we learned along the way.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can write your goals. The way that evolved into, because I'm trying to condition my subconscious to believe that this stuff has already happened.
Yeah.
And if you write it down as if it's already happened, and then you're visualizing it and role playing it and feeling the feelings of these goals having played out in your life, you're essentially tricking your subconscious into believing that it's already happened. And your subconscious doesn't know the difference if you're as vivid as you can be in whether or not it's actually happening or you're just imagining it.
You're a very vivid visualizer, so you're good at that.
And I think that everybody has some of that.
Yeah.
And it's a powerful tool if you can combine it with putting your goals on paper and doing it often so it's at the top of your mind. It helps you with your decision making. It helps you with your attitude and your activity. But then if you combine that with, you've heard people talk about vision boards, which we've done in the past. So you're visualizing it, you're looking at these things that are also triggers. But then I don't do it often, but I think it happens more often than I think it does, just because it's one of those things that comes naturally to me.
Yeah.
That it doesn't come as naturally for other people, that I visualize and I feel the feelings of my goals already happening. And these things being in place, and the right people in my life, and the money coming in, the organization that I'm trying to build, the feeling that I want to have in my relationships, and how I make people feel.
Yeah.
I play those things out, especially as I'm going through these things that I don't like the way that they feel, and how would I prefer that would have turned out. And if you can combine all those things together,
Yeah.
it makes for a powerful formula to make your goals a reality. And I read a book one time by Napoleon Hill. It's called Wishes Won't Bring You Riches. So when you hear that, what does that mean to you? Wishes won't bring you riches.
To me, that means like you can have a wish or a goal, but without the action behind it, it's not going to bring you much. So you still got to do the work.
And
I haven't read the book, but
you didn't read that one? That one, it came at a perfect time. And it's funny how when you've gotten a recommendation, you're reading a book, there's certain parts of it that you don't remember, but then there's certain parts of it that were like speaking directly into everything that's going on in your life right now.
it's what you needed at the time.
And it's exactly what I needed. And I remember doing a couple of videos too. I was even doing like live Facebook videos when I was reading that book, because it was just speaking to me. It was so powerful, and I was so excited about applying it.
Yeah.
And it's this concept that a lot of people struggle with. And there's a difference between just wishing things can happen and writing your goals and planning it out and putting a plan of action together. Because if you fail to plan, you can pretty much plan on failing. And
So you mean my planning is good?
So listen, I do a lot of planning. I just don't have to put it on paper and be organized with it.
Oh, okay.
Everybody has their own way of doing it.
Okay.
You're very organized with your planning. And my mom was the same way growing up. And for me, it was like, can't we just go? Like, do we really have to look through all this stuff and then we can go?
Yeah.
I knew that I could make sense of it as I was going.
Yeah.
And some people just want to be a little bit more structured with it, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And there is a powerful message just in that alone, because I wouldn't do well with somebody else as a spouse that did the exact same things that I did.
That'd be chaotic.
It'd just be freaking chaos. It'd be nuts, and we'd butt heads all the time. Not that we don't butt heads often, because we have different ways of thinking, but we complement each other in a lot of ways. And I'm ready to go at the drop of a hat, and I'll make this shit make sense as we go. But it's helped me a lot, and we've gotten out of a lot of binds because we planned ahead of time. I say we, like I planned, but I didn't plan. Because you planned, we've had a different outcome. But there's going to be challenges that come up along the way also.
Yeah.
And I've got a guy that works with us. He's been working with us for several years, and we've seen his progress over the last couple of years. And I remember early on he came to me, and he's influenced by the environment, and he wants to do things with his life. He wants to improve. He'd never really been goal oriented, and this was kind of introducing him to this environment, like goals, and I can accomplish more than what I've been led to believe in the past. And he came to me this one day, and he rattled off like 15 things that he wanted to do, and he's so excited. He's going to do all these things. He's going to start reading. He's start working out. He's going to eat more healthy, and he's excited about this relationship that he's in. And he listed off all these things, and he's very articulate, very intelligent.
He's going to do them all at once.
And he was going to do them all at once. In his mind, it was all going to play out perfectly. And then it was like a week later, I could tell something was off, and I asked him what was going on and where he was at with his. Are you still going to the gym? What book are you reading right now? And because it didn't go as planned, he had pretty much let go of all of those goals.
Yeah, I think it's important. Like if you miss a day or you miss one of your things, to not get down on yourself. Like you can still pick it back up, even if it's the next day or the next week. But don't spiral out of control and then be like, oh, I can't do any
Just
of it
going
now.
back to my old stuff now.
Yeah.
So now what about, so there's that aspect also, but then if somebody's really early on in their process and they're just getting involved with a company like ours and they're getting introduced to some of these concepts and they're getting excited. For me, I think I had a lot of goals, but I started on just little things.
Yeah.
And I wasn't trying to do all of them at the same time. It overwhelmed me to think about this entire list of goals that I wanted to do. So the very first thing that I did, and I think that for people to get some momentum, you got to start somewhere. And sometimes you need to start small. And I still had my big goals.
Right.
I had big, crazy ass goals that I thought were going to take me 3 to 5 years. But I started just getting out of bed 30 minutes earlier.
Yeah.
That's really remember what?
I remember that.
That was like the only thing I started with.
Yeah.
I was happy with being sober. That was one goal. Check that off the list. The next thing I wanted to do was, man, I felt like shit every day that I got up at 10 o'clock.
Well, we started going to bed a little earlier, and then getting up a little earlier. Yeah.
But that was the first thing that started to help with the momentum.
Yeah.
And it was getting rid of some old habits to make room for some new habits. And once I started to get some momentum, it built confidence. Like, man, that wasn't even that bad.
Yeah.
Once I set my mind to it, and I was consistent, I didn't let one day sleeping in deter me and let me go completely backwards.
Yeah.
I still slept in a lot, but I was getting up a little bit earlier, and it felt good.
Yeah.
And then I started reading a little bit. And I would put a book next to the bed. And then if I didn't read, I let that bother me.
Yeah.
And then there was all kinds of excuses and justifications, and man, it's cutting into my sleep time and my family time. But there was just little by little starting to chip away at this big ass list of goals that I had, and started to implement them and create a little bit of momentum. And every time that I could put a month of consistency in, it helped me with my confidence.
Yeah.
And little by little, I added more and more and more. And another thing to consider here also is that if you're adding new habits and you're getting more disciplined, what do you do with all your bad habits?
They just start to go away naturally.
So yeah, I don't think I focused a lot of time. So as you reflect back on the process and how things have gone, as you're implementing new things in your life, new habits, and you're becoming more disciplined, it's interesting to kind of see from that outside perspective how things played out.
Yeah.
Because it's not like I was being all that intentional about not doing the other things, but as I was focused, I was all in on these new habits and disciplines to help me get closer to my goals. The other things just started to fade out.
Well, yeah, what you're focusing on is what's going to transpire. You know? Yeah. And now we're to a point where I love the lifestyle design that we've built out. I wish you could share that on here.
So I actually have a template, and it's got a bunch of personal stuff on it. But if you're interested, I'll put it in the show notes so you can have a customized template that'll still have some generic information in there. But I think there's 10 different categories, and we go over it, maybe quarterly, sometimes more often. And
we were looking at it last night, and it's like everything on here is kind of like we went in there and designed what we want our life to look like down to our daily schedule. And it's cool to see how we've stuck to it for so long without having to look at it for a while. But yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and there's a difference between your goals. I'm going to talk here in a minute about how your goals evolve over time.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between your daily goals and the things that you're trying to keep at the top of your mind and this lifestyle design, which is a spreadsheet, and it's complex, and there's a ton of time that was involved in building it out. But because we have that in place and we've reviewed it enough, it's kind of like this North Star for us, for our family, our relationships, our experiences, our finances,
business,
business goals, our health. It's all these things that we've built together and that we've butted heads on some things. We have different beliefs. We've kind of found the middle ground on things that we can both agree on.
Yeah.
And now we go back and look at it. We were looking at it last night, and there was a bunch of things that we had, goals that we had hit that we hadn't checked off the list yet. Like, man, we got to update this thing. Like we haven't gone back through and looked at all these things, but look how far we've come since some of these tabs that don't get looked at as often.
Well, and some of the things we had in like our 3 to 5 year goals, we had already hit. So we know that we hit those way quicker than we anticipated. So that's cool.
Then there's also the goals that I do more often, which are on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. And it's interesting to go back and look at my book from 2018 when I first wrote my first bullet point list down on January 18th, 2018.
How do you remember that?
Because I've looked at it so many times.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of how far I've come. And it's an entire book of, I don't know, it's probably 200 pages that front and back, every single line in that entire book is full of my goals and my journal entries. And I love going back and just seeing the progress.
And seeing where your mind was at that time.
And kind of being able to go back to where my mindset was and the way that I was writing things and my belief systems. And going from just writing bullet points to watching the progression of my visualization and my ability to really make bigger goals, and the belief that I'd started to build in myself that all of these goals are starting to become a reality. Like the ones that I thought were going to take me 3 to 5 years are only taking me 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
And when I'm ultra focused and I've got my action plans and I'm taking consistent activity in the direction of those goals, they happen a lot faster than I was anticipating.
Yeah.
And then the evolution of those things, like even month over month, sometimes I've got new influences in my life and there's new things that become possible. And I'm watching somebody else do it and it makes it more real for me. And then they evolve and the wording changes and the numbers get bigger and the time frames get shorter.
I know that's kind of cool because like the unexpected challenges or changes, but those could also be positive, the unexpected changes, having new influences in your life and stuff like that.
It's all about what you focus on.
Yeah.
Because how often do you run into people that ran into challenges or changes and they ran into roadblocks and they got stuck on that and it was taking up so much of their energy that they got completely taken off track?
Yeah. A lot.
I think it happens a lot. And that was one thing that successful people have in common is they don't let those things derail them
You got to
like
learn
other people do.
how to pivot.
You make a pivot and you shift and you recognize where there was an opportunity to learn and you just keep right on going.
Yeah.
And early on it's harder because you haven't developed the awareness of how that works and how powerful your mind is on being able to continue to make progress and look past things and have a short memory. You know, you hear, and I didn't even watch the Super Bowl, but you hear about this common thing gets brought up with the best quarterbacks and the best defensive players. When they F something up, when they missed a read, it's like 60 seconds later, they got to be back lined up for their next shot at it.
Yeah.
And you got to have a short memory. Because you can't be focused on the shit that just happened that you did wrong, or maybe you misread, or you just didn't do as good as you knew you could have.
Yeah.
It's the next play. And now you got to get rid of all that energy and focus all your energy and enthusiasm onto the next play. And not let whatever just happened affect you. Or as little as possible.
Yeah.
And if you want to get good in business, if you want to get good in sales, if you want to, really applies to anything in life. You want to be a better father, husband, communicator, leader, you got to take the lessons when they present themselves, move forward, do it better next time.
Yeah.
And not let it take you off track. Don't let it derail you. And if you're interested in getting involved in business and in sales, it's going to happen a lot. That's why it's the same for everybody,
Yeah.
right?
It's not. But as a planner, I've had to learn how to shift and pivot and,
Oh boy, we've had many
and
of
be
conversations.
spontaneous and just go with the flow.
Everything's not going to turn out exactly the way that you planned, honey.
It's gonna be
As
fine.
tactfully as possible.
I have a lot of conversations in my head sometimes.
It's good, which you should.
Yes. Okay. Did we cover it all?
Covered the first page. Now, what about how important is your mindset on being able to reach your goals?
Super important. Gotta
I agree.
Positive. You got to keep them at the front of your mind. Mm-hmm. So how do you keep your goals at the front of your mind?
I write them down often.
Yes.
How often do you think most people write their goals down?
Most people, I don't know, probably not very often. Weekly, monthly?
So before we started this journey of personal development together, how often did we write our goals down?
Never.
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 Never, not once. I don't think we wrote our goals down once in 8 years that we were married.
Yeah, probably not till you started with like Primerica.
I think probably the most that people write their goals down that aren't in like an environment like sales, they're doing it at New Year's.
Yeah.
And they're doing New Year's resolutions, and they want to go to the gym, they want to get in better shape, they want to make more money.
Yeah.
But that's once a year. So how likely do you think that it is for you to remember the specifics of what your goals were in March if you just wrote them 3 months ago?
Not likely.
I mean, you may remember some parts of it, but if you really want to take this seriously, you want to hit some new targets, you want to become better, you want to reach your true potential, you got to have those things in front of you every day, and if not every day, at least every week.
Yeah.
And then,
So for a while you were doing them on note cards. I think, did Jeff recommend that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's good for somebody that's like out in the field and that they can pull them out of their pocket every day or even in the office. It's like, oh, I had a goal. I was going to have a better attitude or whatever it is.
or one thing that
Or
worked for me.
when you're having a bad day, then you pull them out and be like, okay, these are what my goals are. And get realigned.
And I would rewrite my goals.
Throughout the day?
I would rewrite them throughout the day especially while I was knocking doors.
Yeah.
Been dealing with so much rejection, and I got guns pulled on me. I got told to get the F out of here.
Yeah.
And when I got involved with door to door to begin with, I had never experienced that level of rejection. It was tough on me. But when I had developed the habit of writing my goals down, I had my targets. I knew what numbers that I was aiming to hit for my income, for my total sales, for my revenue that I wanted to produce. And if I went home, every time that happened, I knew it was a lot less likely for me to be able to hit those goals. So every time that one of those things happened to me, I would get my goals back out. And if I wasn't rewriting them, I was at least reviewing them. Because now it's like, man, you can either go home, just bitch out, or you are committed, you are all in to go and accomplish these goals. And they were always at the top of my mind. It's going to help me, or it did help me, get through the challenges and the difficult times because I kept those things at the top of my mind. I was reviewing them every single day.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then another thing that has to do with the mindset is the belief. We talked a little bit about it, but each time that you overcome one of those challenges, you reach one of your goals and it becomes more real, you kind of get the validation that, wow, this is working.
Yeah.
These things that I thought were going to take me much, much longer have happened already. And they happened quicker and faster, and it was better than I had ever anticipated. That builds momentum. Do you agree?
Yeah.
And then, I think a lot of people would let off the gas once they start reaching some level of success. That you kind of got this reach your ceiling concept that you hear people talk about, and then you let off the gas. And of course I've done that too. I'm guilty of that.
I wouldn't say so. Maybe.
I'm pretty hard on myself.
But like last night when we were going through and looking at and checking stuff off, you're like, okay, well, we got to change the number to a higher number now. And you went in and immediately adjusted it instead of just being like, okay, well, we hit the goal. We can relax a little bit.
Yeah, I had, there was a phrase that I heard from Tom Hopkins one time that has impacted my life significantly. He said, I will always do the most productive thing at every given moment. So even though I have stayed consistent and I've continued to grow and make progress, there are times when I know that I'm not doing the most productive thing and I've let off the gas.
Yeah.
And because I'm hard on myself, even though it's a small little blip, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it helps me to remember that and to have that conditioned and to keep replaying it over in my head. You could be doing something more productive right now, but you're choosing not to. Are you being a little bitch? Are you going to continue to be a little bitch? Or are you going to get your shit back together and keep pushing? And this is in every area. We got all those 10 different categories, and I want to make progress every week, every month, and every year in all of those areas and move closer to our goals, become a better father, husband, leader, communicator, business owner, be able to make a bigger impact. I still need to buy a fucking jet.
Would you get on that?
I'm working on it. But every time that I let off the gas, I know it's going to take me a little bit longer to get that jet than if I just kept the hammer down.
Yeah. Yep. And it's good to celebrate the wins, right?
It is.
So celebrate when you hit your goals and then make them bigger.
Yeah. Keep on pushing.
Keep on going.
So now what about this concept? I always hear Brad Lee talking about, he's making fun of Cardone for the 10X thing. And he's like, I don't know, some people can do the big goals, but he prefers the little goals and celebrating the little wins along the way.
Why not both?
Okay. So if you think about what we've done, I think we were focused on one, but we were by default doing the other. Does that make sense?
What do you mean? Which one were we doing?
Because I was focused on the big goals,
Yeah.
but I also had an action plan all the way down to the day and the hour of what I was going to need to do right now that's going to lead me towards that big goal. Now, the one thing I don't think I've done very well is celebrate along the way.
Yeah.
Which is important. I've gotten better at it. But I was doing, I was doing my own version of it. Maybe.
Which is fine to make your own thing that works.
But which do you think is more effective? Do you need to be focused on the little goals and celebrating the wins along the way?
Well, I think hitting those little goals is going to help your belief and your mindset, and that making yourself believe that you can do it. But there's nothing wrong with having those big goals, and I think you just have different categories. Like you've got your little goals, whether it's just like checking off a to-do list every day, that's productive for people.
Now, what if you come up halfway short on one of your big goals?
You still hit more than you were planning on, right?
I know, but you didn't even come close to the big goal. Like, wouldn't that be hard?
I don't know. You're the one that's done that, haven't you?
That's the argument that Brad has. He's like, I want to stack up the wins. I want to get all these little goals and get some wins. And if for most people, maybe his argument is that most people couldn't handle coming up that short.
Like they would feel deflated.
It would defeat people, and then you'd be deflated. And do you continue on this journey when there's so much failure happening?
I
Which
don't see it that way.
I don't either. And I've talked to him a little bit about it, and he's got a great argument. Brad's a fucking intelligent person. It's my own interpretation, because with the way that I did it and the way that I want to continue to do it is I do all those things. I'm more like the guy that figures it out as I go.
Yeah.
And celebrating and getting patted on the back is not as important to me as maybe other people. So if I come up halfway short, man, I'm fucking stoked.
Yeah.
Because I still hit a great accomplishment, and I'm doing something, and I'm continuing to level up what those goals are and what I believe is possible. And if I come up halfway short and I think about like where my mindset was before that, like for one, this didn't even ever seem possible to me, and I just accomplished something incredible. So for me, it's just continue to reinforce what I'm capable of doing, and I'm getting closer to my potential. And there's been failures along the way, but I don't look at them as failures. They're like these little blips and these little learning experiences that I've been able to take with me to get better to do it next time.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with having both. You got the little wins and you got the big wins. And have your little wins feed into your big goals.
Mm-hmm. And I think it is individual as well. So everything's different. Like, not everything's going to apply to you like it does to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to find out what works.
Yeah.
And I suggest reading the book, The 10X Rule, and reading the book All In.
I don't think there's any wrong way to do your goals as long as you're consistent with it and doing it regularly. Do what works for you.
Yeah, and that's, the other part that we talked about was letting it evolve and making the adjustments and the pivots and the little shifts along the way, and being okay if it's not playing out exactly how you planned it. And I know a lot of very intelligent people that get so caught up on the details and having everything right that they never get around to really taking enough action for them to reach their goals. So if you're one of those people that thinks through things a lot, and you got to plan, you got to be detailed, and that's okay, as long as you got the action to back it up. And if you find yourself just continuing to spin these same patterns over and over and over, and taking very little action to work in the direction of those goals, because things haven't lined up perfectly for you yet, they never are. And whether it's in sales or in business, you got to be okay with things not going the way that you planned. And as you start to get those wins built up over time, it always turns out good.
Yeah, you just got to start.
You just got to start.
Not going to be a perfect scenario.
You got to make some progress.
Yeah.
So what do you think are the biggest takeaways? What should the listeners focus on the most?
Being consistent with writing their goals.
Okay.
Have them in front of you daily.
Be consistent. Look at them daily. Start small if you need to. If you're like my example that I talked about earlier, and you got this huge list of goals,
I was going to say, yeah, and try and implement one at a time.
Just do one at a time. Start small.
Yeah.
And I always say, there's a book called The Atomic Habits and Mini Habits, I think is what it's called. Two great books that influence the way that I think about habits. Sometimes you just got to start with one push-up. Read one page. Get up 30 minutes earlier. Do it one day, and then maybe you effed up on the second day. But don't let it deter you. Don't let it take you off your streak. You've started a streak. Start today. Do one push-up. Read one page. Get up 30 minutes earlier today, tomorrow morning. And then be okay if you're not perfect, but don't break the streak. Missing one day is not breaking your streak. You started something, finish it. God damn it, finish it.
Keep going.
Keep going.
And then you had written here, talk about them openly so people can hold you accountable.
Accountability. Yes, thank you. The last thing that we want to finish off here with is accountability. The power of accountability. I'm accountable to my wife. I'm accountable to my best friend, Jeff, because I talk about these things openly. And if I was keeping them all to myself, I'm a person of integrity, and I like to keep my own promises. But if nobody knew about them, I'm less likely to stick to them.
Yeah.
And less today than before. But I had a lot of goals. I had a lot of things that I wanted to do that I wasn't sharing and talking about openly. And then when I didn't do it, nobody knew.
Yeah.
That accountability is so strong. So if you're part of a group that is operating at a high level, you've got people that are ahead of you in the process, they're doing things that you would like to do, you want to they've got a lifestyle that you want, and you've got an opportunity to be around those type of people, start talking about what your goals are and asking for some accountability. And I didn't really ask for accountability, but
naturally it happens.
It just happens. When you're talking about things and you're a person of integrity, you're going to go do those things differently than if you were just keeping them to yourself.
Yeah.
And if you're a part of a company like JKR Windows, we've got that type of environment built in, but it's your responsibility to tap into it, to be talking about what those goals are, and then go and deliver. Are you a person of integrity?
Damn right.
I am. I always wanted to be better. And now I've got years and years and years of consistency in keeping my promises and delivering on the things that I'm talking about. And I keep showing up and I keep pushing a little bit harder and I keep showing everybody that I am a person that's going to do things better than you thought that I was going to do them. And that's what I want to be known for. What do you want to be known for? So thanks for checking in, you guys.
That's great.
Another episode of Just Real Quick in the books. My beautiful wife, Chandel. Thank you for being here with me.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
We always get more engagement when this beautiful lady's on here, so.
Oh, that's what you're using me for?
Well, you're also
I guess
an incredible contributor.
Okay, thanks.
So listen, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to the podcast. Share this with somebody that you think could benefit. I know that you're thinking of somebody right now that maybe doesn't have their goals together. You want better for them, and they're just looking for that spark. Maybe this is the spark, Just Real Quick, or maybe it's the All-In book that I wrote and released just recently. I'm partial, but tell me for yourself what you think about it. It's on Amazon. The Audible just released last week, so I'm really excited. I narrated it myself. Go check it out. Thanks for checking in, you guys. We'll see you next time on another episode of Just Real Quick.